Okay, we're recording. Welcome, Kimberly Clo, to the first Artist Magical Journey interview with
Woo!
me,
I'm
Joheckett.
so honored.
Yay, you're my first guest, the first interview. So we're going to talk a bit about, I'm going to ask you to describe your art journey as a magical quest or a magical journey, because
Mm.
I was a bit obsessed with Lord of the Rings when I was younger, and I really like the idea of an artist's journey being a magical thing. So we have a series of questions. We will dip in and out of them. We'll free flow, we'll free form, and I'm really excited that you're going to share some of your art as well on the screen.
Mm.
And we'll find out more about you, your art, what it means to be an artist.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. I'm super honored to be your first guest, your first subject of inquiry on your wonderful journey.
Yeah.
So, your question was about my journey, my artist's journey as a story. And I haven't really thought about it that way. So, what a fun way to put it. But my first thought is the thought of the hero's journey, how they're just going about their own business, minding their own business, thinking they know what their life is all about. And then uh so that happened with me. I was did hair for 25 years, and that was the extent of what I understood my life to be about. And I had kids, and that's what I focused on. And then we moved house in a pretty remarkable and extremely dramatic way. We were on one of those shows where they redo your house, and suddenly we found ourselves in a new place, and it was wonderful and a bit traumatic because it's so fast, right?
Mm.
And uh, I found myself on this land and not knowing exactly how to connect with it. Like, I had come from maybe a quarter acre, maybe, and like now we're at an acre of land, and I see the responsibility of I'm the one to care for it. So as I went to tune into the land, I started making connections in very surprising ways with the land, which over time evolved into creating art that responded to all of it. So it
Wow.
really came from a place of almost like a mama, like, how do I take care of this baby?
Wow. So Kimberly, what were the steps? So you connected with the land spiritually?
Yes, I would say yes, for sure. My intention was to ask the land, what am I supposed to do here? I don't know how to take care of you, or what is
Mm.
needed. And so I remembered that the Native Americans, they connect with the directions, and I've learned about it. I've even spoken about it before, but I hadn't had my own thing with the directions the way that native people had. And so I was like, you know what, that seems like a good starting place. I'm talking to the land anyway. Let's just start with the east. It's where the sun comes up. We'll go there. And when I did, um, I had a spiritual experience, or I guess it's spiritual. It's
Like
otherworldly,
like a kind of vision?
like a kind of vision. And I saw a dragon, a
Wow.
beautiful kind of strong yellow dragon. And um, she had a message. I asked her, "Who are you?" And she said, "I am you." I was like, "What? You're what?" And so she says that I am you. And then I asked her what her wisdom is. And she says, "I make all things new." And I'm like, you make all things new, or I make all things new? So as it turned out, there was this exchange with her,
Mm,
and she
mm,
had
mm,
this
mm.
message. I'm trying to say it kind of quickly. Uh,
Yeah,
it's
I know.
this
It's
sweet thing to talk about. It's very personal, but I'll say I, in the process, ended up meeting four, well, five dragons that each
wow.
had a different color. They each
Wow.
had a different message of wisdom. That what they're doing is orienting me to
Wow.
myself, to my wisdom.
Mm,
And as I'm learning, it's a structure, it's a container that holds for creation. It's like a container for creation. And so over time, as I was, meditating on and connecting with and tuning in to like, what is this? And I would tune in. And around that same time, I was also really drawn to creating geometry in a sacred way as a
Mm,
spiritual practice. They used to say, I think all geometry is sacred. So I don't think there's just certain shapes or certain configurations that are. But when you study it as a practice, it is good to learn how to do
mm.
a proper, expression in geometry.
Can I just check a couple of things? Sorry, because I just want to make sure I understand. So you had this communication, first of all, with these sort of, you had these kind of vision communication or meditation communications with these dragons, 5 of them, and they started to direct you how to interact with and how to create within the earth, the live, so like living art with your garden.
Yes,
And
yes.
at the same time, you are practicing physically drawing geometry also as a sacred, a spiritual practice.
Yes.
And were you drawing like specific shapes, circles, squares, or
Well,
how were you doing it?
and I just want to make the distinction that these were two, in my mind,
Separate.
completely separate things. I had no idea they had
Yeah.
anything to do with each other. But the geometry, when you learn sacred geometry, you're kind of learning about the creation story through these shapes. And so I would try and replicate and duplicate these things that I had seen in various books and practices. But really, it was a little bit of an obsession, and I
Mm.
was terrible at it. Like I was just like, like I'm dropping the compass and it's flying, and I'm like, I want to get this. I love it so. Like it was feeding something. And I think, and I had retired from doing hair, so it fed, and hair is geometry, So
Yeah.
it had fed something for me, and it wasn't until I was fooling around a little, just kind of in play, which is where we create best, tuning into this wisdom of the dragons, like this is just wild and weird, and then I'm doing this geometry, and I brought them together, and I was like, I began to express the various dragons and how they felt to me in these images that were geometry based.
So was there like a leap or a moment where you went from like copying and trying
Oh,
to trying to copy something to trying to make something new? Was
yes.
there like a moment?
Well, there was a moment when it got like I would do the exercises and stuff to learn it, and then I began deviating somewhat in play, but there was a distinct moment for sure. Actually, September 13th, it was Friday the 13th of 2019. It was a full moon, and I had an experience with my little psychedelic shroomy friends, and and everything changed after that. And then I started drawing, and I was just sort of tuning into the Dragon of the East, right? And I started drawing, and I'm like, oh, like something just changed. Like this isn't the same thing as what I was just doing. I
Mm,
don't know what just happened. And then I made another one for the Dragon of the South, and then the
mm,
Dragon of the West. And then as I kept going, I was realizing that I'm tuning into a way of expressing a thing
mm, mm.
in another language. And
That's can I just say that
yeah.
really just because it makes me think of this thing, and I'm going to come back to you in a moment, but I'm
Oh
just
yeah,
going to
yeah.
throw it in there for a sec. Years ago, I used to cycle to my studio up past Regent's Park. And I remember cycling past the park one day and thinking you could use so many different ways to describe this park. Like there's so many languages. You could describe it by the botany, what's planted in it. You could describe it as a map drawn out. You could describe it as how people use it. You could describe like, and as I started, as like you could describe it in a poem, you could paint it in it as a landscape. And it really blew my mind that there's actually so many languages to describe something. And
Yeah,
it sounds like you hit on one that really
yeah,
resonated with you.
most definitely. And I've come to learn that it went another layer deeper. So I was doing some art. Would you well, we can go through the images.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to show
Yeah.
some. We'll do that
Would you
next.
like me to show you the dragon images now?
Tell us what happened a little
Oh,
bit
okay.
more. And then we'll show it. Then we'll see it.
So I'm doing these dragon and I had begun to get clear that the mushrooms I had taken also happened to look, the next day after I drew one, happened to look almost exactly like the dragon of the east, almost to such a degree that it was shocking and stunning. And I'm like, that's so strange. And I hear, however you hear these things, like you're drawing what the mushroom looks like in the geometry realm. It's like you've drawn a portrait of that little shroomy, and you would recognize it in the earth realm as a mushroom. But if you only spoke geometry realm language and art, you'd be like, oh, that's that guy. I know that guy. That's cool. So I was like, it's just a lot to get your head around. And so
that is, sorry, I'm going to cut in again. That is why mathematics were invented as a language for people to communicate. From what I understand, mathematics is a language of communication for people that don't speak the same verbal language. Yes. So like geometry too, right?
Yes. And so I began seeing creation in geometry. Like I would see a flower with a leaf, and I could see the geometry sort of overlay on it, like you're watching a screen that has an overlay of geometric whatever. So that's very cool. And then one day I was just and I don't draw with any plan ahead of time in mind. We can talk about process another time, but like I'm not like, I'm gonna make it look like this. I'm like genuinely discovering something. And so I was drawing one, and as I go, and I'm wrapping it up, and I'm like beholding it, like, wow, that feels so good to look at that. And I hear, this is a self-portrait. And I'm like, what? What do you mean self-portrait? And they're like, just like you would recognize that little shroomy in the geometry realm, you, Kimberly, are recognizable in every dimension as yourself. And so I began communicating these portraits. There's portraits of people that I can show you.
Let's have a look at some of them.
Okay,
I'm really excited. Let's see let's have a look at whatever you've got there. Do you want to share your screen?
Yes. Okay.
Because I've seen some of your work, but only one or two pieces. So I'm really, really interested.
All right. Are you able to see this?
Yes. Yes.
So this is the portrait I drew of the Dragon of the East.
Wow.
And and this was literally, most of these, the beginning ones are just in my like sketchbook. I didn't realize I was making art that mattered. I mean, it mattered to me, but like I wasn't an artist. I was a hairdresser. Wow. So anyway, I did this. I'm using gold leaf, but I want you to see what happens when I turn it upside down.
Oh, wow.
Now, if you are familiar with the mushroom called golden teacher, this looks just like it. And I adore it. And so when I saw this, I mean, it immediately came alive. It looks like a being. It looks like maybe an Asian sort of,
kind of does, doesn't it?
Spirit, right? Okay, so then this is the Dragon of the South.
Wow.
Her wisdom.
I love the gold leaf, Kimberly. Oh my God.
Thank you. Her wisdom is, I am designed to shine. Wow. And there's teaching. There's huge teaching behind. I'm hearing an echo all of a sudden. Or I was.
That was my husband laughing. Are you still hearing it?
No, not right now. Okay. So this is the Dragon of the South.
I think that was my husband laughing in the other room. Sorry.
That's okay. Laughter is wonderful. And so this is the same upside down, or another direction, which has an entirely other, more masculine feel.
You could say that.
This is the dragon.
I'm just gonna put something in there as well. I've never done it before. I'm reading The Artist's Way and doing a little bit, and Julia Cameron's really into synchronicity as a kind of a factor of the art journey. And it seems like you had a big cluster of them around this time.
Oh, huge. So this is the Dragon of the South. This is the Dragon of the West.
Wow, that's stunning. That's
His
so
his
gorgeous.
wisdom is, I take mature, responsible care of my creations. And
Mm,
he's green. And
mm,
where you see the rainbow in my work, it means manifested
mm.
creation. Like it's a
Wow.
material that moves through dimensions. So in our dimension, rainbow is like a, you can barely, you can't touch it or feel it or hold it, you just sort of know about it. But
Yeah,
in these
yeah.
realms, it's actually matter, it's a certain kind of matter. But that's another
Mm.
that's another story for another day.
I've been thinking since you, because you know we chatted about this a little bit before the interview and a
Mhm.
few days ago, and I've been thinking about this particular message really stayed with me because I actually think that I feel this way about my art, and I think that sometimes artists don't make that connection that their art is like their babies and deserves being, when I say protected, like for example, when we sell it, deserves being stood for its value and so on. Like
Yes.
looking after your creations is really, really important. Like valuing them and standing for them
Mhm.
is really important.
Yes, and we are stewards of them. In the same way I'm a steward of my land, I am here to
Yeah.
be a steward. I don't know what the right word is in the stewardess. That sounds weird, but I am the queen of this land. Not because I am here to be served, but because I am the one who holds the ultimate accountability and responsibility to the land for what I've done
Mm,
and how I've
yeah.
chosen or not chosen to take mature, responsible care of it. I can't,
Yeah.
nobody fucking listens to me in the world. Nobody cares what I think about climate change. Nobody cares what I think about all that stuff. But the land that I live on does.
Mm,
She's the one
yeah.
who's going to look back at me and show me herself. If I don't take care of
Yeah.
her, she's just holding up a mirror for me.
Mm,
So, in mature,
wow.
responsible care is people, plants, and pets. Start there first before you think
So,
you're.
so your first ones when you were started sort of consciously making art rather than, making geometry, if you see what I mean,
Yeah,
were
yeah,
the dragons. They came
yeah.
first.
They came first. And I'll show you. This is the dragon of the north. Her,
Wow.
her wisdom is, I am safe. And
Wow.
she says that you
Yeah.
are that little sliver of gold is
Mm-hmm.
you. And you're just held in like juicy, safe
Mm,
layers. And
yeah,
the
I see
colors are black,
that. I see
brown.
that.
So
That
always
reminds
in my
me of my
work,
cave.
I'm sorry.
No, that reminds me a bit of some of my ceramic caves.
I love your ceramics. They're gorgeous. So this is a way of visualizing the dragon.
Gosh.
So this
That's
here,
all of them together.
that's all of them together in my visualization of my fire pit garden, my ritual garden. So this would be a
Wow.
fire pit. This is
Mm.
the dragon of the east, and I'll plant
Yep.
yellow things there.
Yep.
Dragon of the south, dragon of the
Wow.
west. So they're each expressing as themselves. And the purple dragon, anytime that you see purple, it is
Mm.
the manifested one, the outside
Wow.
of the conceptual version of yourself. It's the
Mhm,
version of you
mhm.
that's in the material world, that
Right. Yeah.
it's the dragon that loves the gold and the jewels and like and
Mhm.
has like material things. Dragons are really drawn to that for a reason, because they are
Mm.
tools of the earth and of
Mm.
abundance and wealth, and we love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And they're gorgeous. All those
And they're
things.
gorgeous. So this was another piece that came through that was um, guidance, but it's a way of expressing how you can see something in the other realms. So, for instance, black brown represents I am safe.
Right.
Blue is the dragon. I didn't talk about that yet, but the blue dragon is the companion. He's the one who says, I am with you. Behold, I am with you. I walk with you. I am beside you. You
Mm,
are not
mm,
by
mm,
yourself. This is another way of expressing that. And look, these are
mm.
two guides. They're mamas. And when she's looking at you, when they're looking at you this way, that you see that there is a solid circle and a
Mm,
solid
mm, mm,
space. Then when you turn it over, hold on, if I don't have the backward version of it up here, but when you see the bottom half flipped over,
mm.
it's permeable and open, and there's space that can come in. And this is guidance
Yeah.
that is
I
sort of
see
like
that.
the sun and the moon guidance, or like
Mm.
different ways of.
And what materials are you using? Are you using pens? What are
Yep,
you using?
I use Pens and Compass and Gold Leaf
Wow. And is that copper leaf?
and Copper Leaf. Yep. This here,
I
this
love
is the
copper.
piece that my first piece that was, this is a self-portrait. This is,
Wow.
and then this is, I thought I had it sideways too, but when you see
You
it
know what?
sideways,
That that
it's
that
goddess.
the gold and the copper there, is that part of Hecate's symbol? I think that might be
Yes,
part of
yes, the
Hecate's
triple
symbol.
goddess. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. When
But
she's
the other
sideways,
way.
you can see it the other way, and I thought I
Yeah.
had it set up that way, but there it might be later in the slides here, but
Wow.
so here's a few other pieces to show you. This is a portrait of my daughter Kenya.
Wow.
This is
Amazing.
my daughter Aslan,
Wow.
and this is the other. Now, doesn't it look kind of almost like a lion face?
Yeah, yeah, I see that.
My daughter's name is Aslan, and she's a
Yeah.
lion. Like
Wow.
it's just beautiful. This is my mother.
Wow.
So do you see how complicated that got?
Mm.
It's power and it's beauty, and it's also really complicated and
And
confusing.
it's delicate as well. It's
Delicate,
gorgeous.
so many things. This so and here's what I want to say also. These pieces are not just them. So if you were to think, because we're in the geometry realm, we're
Mm.
backing ourselves out, in our view, in our purview of what we're beholding. So whereas if you're up close, it's like, oh, this is a picture of a mushroom. It's not just
Mm.
that. That mushroom image, if you imagine the geometry as the filter over a spotlight that's on a stage,
Mm.
right? And then that light comes down and out. Let's
Mm.
say that this image, for instance, is a great one. This image is one that came through, my friend Cindy. When I was creating this piece, and as I was making it, I was like, this feels so much like Cindy. I wasn't trying to, it just is how it went. And as I'm tuning in, I'm connecting to all kinds of things that I have access to because I know Cindy, because
Mm.
of the kind of consciousness she carries. If this was a film over a light, it casts a really big light. Cindy is one
Mm.
of the people in that light. She's not the only one. This also grabs a bit of Christ consciousness, or sort of an
Mm.
elevated consciousness of unconditional love. This is it in another direction.
Yeah, yeah, I see that.
This is
Whoa.
self-portrait number 2.
Wow.
This one uses 24 karat gold.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm. And that purple again.
and there's the
That was in the
purple.
last one too. I noticed
Mhm.
that.
And then
Mm.
this is self-portrait number 3.
Yeah.
Now, as I put them in order next to each other, you can watch an
Mm.
evolution of how they're going, because I'm coming to understand things about myself that I never knew. And I just
Mm.
want to show you this last one. This is self-portrait
Wow.
number 4, and it's
Wow.
not purple.
No, it's
And it is
not.
also a self-portrait, because I am a lot of things. In fact, every piece that I do is a self-portrait.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. But
It comes to you.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then this is the white dragon. So if you could imagine, if you see us in
Mm.
say we're in Russian nesting dolls, the white
Mm.
dragon is the next bigger Russian nesting doll of all the other
Mm.
stuff. Like, this is like titty mama love. This is like divine mother, potent love that covers. It goes so far beyond um like getting it. I don't know how to
Yeah.
explain it. I don't really have words for it. It looks like that. It feels like what you're seeing.
You know what? That looks like that needs to be a tattoo.
That needs to be on the side of a building, actually. I'd like
That's
it
gonna,
on the
yeah,
side
that
of
would
a
be even
building
better, a
that
building tattoo,
traffic
but I can
people
really
will
see
drive
that.
past and see it and
Yes.
know that they're held by something bigger. Anyway.
Or what about land art? You know, like those chalk, you know, like that ancient horse in that, and the man with the big erection, like, you know, have you seen pictures of those, the land art cut in the chalk cliffs
No.
in England? I'll have to find those for you. They're quite old, and it's like they've cut away the grass,
Oh.
And the white chalk underneath shows, and the shape, there's one in the shape of a horse and there's one in the shape of a man with a big penis. And there's probably more that have gotten covered over the years, but I'll find them for you.
Oh, I'd love to see them. You know, I'm doing land art on my
You
land.
are?
I'm creating
Yeah.
circle gardens. So I'm making all these circles everywhere, a food forest, and I have a garden where I do my work with the dragons. So with these dragons, it goes beyond just the art and it goes to my practice. So when I want to create something, like I'm trying right now to learn about NFT. Oh my gosh, wild world, right? So I go in, I stand in my garden, and I face the circle of the east, of the dragon of the east, and I say, I create anew according to my pleasure. How do I want this to go? I don't know how to do this. I'm calling in people who understand more than me. I'm calling in collaborators. I'm calling people who understand these visions that I'm having that only work in VR. I'm calling in every form of support by imagination over effort, right? Like our beloved teacher says. And so I go through and
We might as well name check her since we're talking about her. That's
yes,
Kasia.
yes,
Urbaniak.
Kasia Urbaniak, who I adore. And so
that's how we met. So
that's how we met. That's right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So Kimberly, I want to ask, you can leave these up if you like, but the only thing is, let me see if I can get my,
undo it so you can, yeah.
Because I'm going to ask you some more questions, but if you want to keep showing your art at the same time.
No, let's do this. I'll show it if we need to, but I'd like to see your face better. Yeah.
Okay. Because I want to ask you, because we've spoken about a bit about your magical art journey. We've spoken about what your art's about and when you're making art, what you're trying to do or not do. We've spoken a bit about that. So I want to ask you the next question I want to ask you, because I've got 7 magical questions. The next one is, what does being an artist mean to you?
I love that question so much. First, I want to read this quote to you. Do you know Terence McKenna?
I don't think I do, so I'm going to learn something new.
So Terence McKenna has a quote that is my favorite. This is what I'm looking at. These are notes that I took on one of his talks, and he has a quote that I absolutely adore. Where is it? It's so funny that I can't find it, and I had it right here this whole time. Art's task is to save the soul of mankind. Anything else is a dithering while Rome burns. Wow. And then here's the other one. If the artists who are self-selected for being able to journey into the other, if the artists cannot find the way, then the way cannot be found. I love dramatic language anyway.
That's so similar. That's really,
that speaks so deep.
Times with, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now,
so,
go ahead.
No, carry on.
Right now, as an artist, I believe that the artists are the self-selected ones who have the courage to look at the very bleeding edge of what's real and what are we being told, what are we being given, does it have to be that way, how do I reconcile what they're telling me that this world is meant to be and what I feel in here and what I see, the way I understand it. And when I get honest and real, there is such a discrepancy. My work is to shine a light, not on the discrepancies, because those, mine and yours will be different. And if I get worked up about making sure that you know how I feel about a thing that I disagree with, that's just confusing and distracting. However, when I go to, it's like going the difference between getting water from your faucet versus getting water from the city water, right? Like going to where it comes, the big source of it. For me, my task is to go to this source. I go to love. I go so hard into love. And it's like what I was describing about rainbow, how like here it's kind of like this fuzzy sort of thing you can't really access too well, but where we're from, where we come from, where we're returning to as we become more ourselves truly. It's a fucking substance. It's a thing. It is the life source. My work, my art's secret work is to make that love that is actually the life source of how we're going to get through this thing, to make it irresistible and to be ruthless about it. So my work, my art as an artist, my work is to make sure that I am holding to the standard of irresistible and ruthless.
I love that, Kimberly. And I have this thing that I have this thing about artists that is very similar to what you've described. It's a slightly different flavor, but I have this feeling that one of the things that blocks makes it difficult for artists sometimes, or all artists sometimes, and some artists a lot of the time, is because it is quite scary, and it is quite you have to be very brave, and unfortunately our society doesn't really support us in that. And so when we do it, we're really out on a limb, unless we find other people that support us. That's one of my missions, to try and change how society. I think that's why I'm so drawn to these interviews. I want to change our position in society so that we feel supported, so that we have we have that fuel and that nourishment to do this, because like artists, it's imagination that changes the world. And whoever gets to use their imagination gets to shape where the world goes.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I really want to try and help to create the world that supports artists in their quest.
I think it points to a bigger thing. Like it points to like we are as important as every other job that there is in creating a new reality, a new world, or whatever. And the old one is broken. The old world is breaking down, and it's going to be written by someone. The new world, the new way we do things. And right now, it's being written by the people who are like the go west.
Sorry, one sec. Sorry, Rick, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm in an apartment with no door between where I am and the kitchen.
That's okay.
So every noise comes through. Well, we've gone through quite a lot of the questions. We've gone through, what does being an artist mean to you, and what's the purpose of art? So I think this leads on to, what do you think is the hardest thing about being an artist?
I find it difficult to understand. There is this uncharted world. I don't know how to. I know how to do an artist to create the art. I find it difficult to understand where it belongs. I feel like that's part of my thing with the land. It's part of my thing with myself. Like, how do I take mature, responsible care of this thing now that I've created it? It's beautiful. It has something to say. It's a medicine of a kind of, it's a kind of medicine. And so learning the landscape of how we sell art, how we do art, how all of that stuff. So like trying to monetize, trying to not die, trying to eat, you know what I'm saying? But I don't believe that there has to be this starving artist situation. I think everybody wants and needs and loves art. Knowing where mine belongs, where does mine go? And I have had tremendous response to my art that hasn't translated in actually purchasing it, because it's easy to enjoy as it is, however it comes in. And so I struggle to be a goal-oriented person who's like, I'm going to do this and that's how it's going to work, and I'm going to go for that thing. That's not how I could build my art. That's not how I do my life. I do it.
Is it like, we were talking about the different languages, so is it like the making art is one language, the putting it out into the world is kind of another language. Is it like that? It's a different language.
Like, no, you know, I'll say that the analogy that might feel better for me is it's sort of like when you're a parent of a newborn. Um, and like my husband and I used to say this all the time, like when our kids were toddlers after they had been newborns and then they grew up and then they're running around and stuff. And he's like, whoa, I didn't sign up for this model. I signed up for a baby. We wanted to get pregnant with a baby. I did not ask for toddlers. Like, and then now they're teenagers. We didn't sign up for teenagers. We signed up. Like, there's a certain kind of growing, like learning curve of growing with my art that I feel like, oh, I was a newborn artist and all I did was this part. May I be as artistically creative, figuring out what comes of it. Like, I can see where it would go, but somehow I get this thing that like, I need somebody else to validate that. I want somebody else to say, yes, it's good and worth blah, 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 blah. And that's where it gets weird and tricky.
I think this is what I was saying about not being really supported by society. I think that is the gap, right? Because I really actually believe that we should be paid for being artists rather than the art we produce. Because I feel we have a function within society that's more than just producing art. And so I think that is part of the gap, actually. And it takes a lot of courage to make the art, but then it takes a whole load of courage to make that leap, to take it out there and to do it in a way that feels like you're still caring for your.
And I prefer to operate in response. I don't know where it's meant to go. Like I don't have a bullish thing of like my art has to be in all these blah 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 blah. I'm like, I don't know what it's like a child. I don't know what you're gonna grow up to be like. I'm not gonna say you have to do ballet your whole life. What if you hate ballet? I don't know where this goes. So and then there's the tension of like, well, set a goal and then do your thing and be very masculine about it. And I almost want the art to draw its own self in. And then people are like, you're crazy. It's not going to do that. That's not how it works. That's in your imagination. So I don't really know what's real or what's real for me, but I know that I'm grateful that you're asking me these questions. I'm grateful to get to talk about it because I feel supported as an artist that you're showing me enough respect to ask me even one question about myself and my work. That's beautiful to me. Truly.
I'm really loving it. I mean, you know, I'm asking you these questions because I ask myself these questions. You know, I don't know that it's possible to really be an artist without bumping your head against them at some point. So, okay, the other side of the coin. What do you think is the best thing about being an artist?
I have to, the word that comes to mind immediately is mirrors. They are mirrors for me. Every piece that I make is a reflection back to me about something. And so even in this interview is a reflection back. I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm seeing myself in it. And in my art, I get to see myself and I'm like, oh, I didn't know I had that in me. Some pieces I've made, I'm like, I have no idea how I did that. And it's super fun. So I like to keep a playful sort of curiosity about my own self. Like, oh, I guess I'm more this way than I thought, or I'm more that way. Like I don't like to assume that I know myself. I like to discover it.
I love that. Thank you. So it seems a theme of your magical art journey is one of discovery, which I think inevitably it has to be. I mean, I know a little bit about the Hero's Quest. I haven't really read a huge amount. You know, as a woman, I think oftentimes that has kind of been shaped around men and the masculine concept. To me, a hero is non-gender specific. But I suspect if it had been written by or about women, it might be a little more circuitous even than, or maybe more spiral, I don't know. But where do you see your art or career or quest taking you next? Like if you're somewhere along that winding path, maybe you've gone through some forests, some swampland, over some mountains, underground, I don't know where you've been, maybe you swam across the river, you've met dragons, you've met fungi that have helped you, you've met different beings that have helped you, or different things that have helped you. What's your sense of what's next? Where are you facing? Where are you looking at now?
Well, it's funny. I have a long-term, it's not a vision in terms of like goal, but it's a vision that I just keep seeing playing out. Like I see this work being very accessible, and it has a certain, especially my more current work. All of this stuff I've shown you is older work, but my more current work has just gotten better and more meaningful, and they're all teachings and all that stuff. So I think somehow it's going to find its way to be to live in an environment where it can be accessed in teaching kinds of ways, and I'm realizing that that's probably going to happen in the virtual reality world and in the NFT world. Like as I'm doing research, not research, I mean, I'm just like down a rabbit hole with it. There are things that I'm seeing and I can create, that I've been creating since I started our work with Kasha, that I didn't ever dream that big. And then the second I let myself do it, I didn't dream it like it's what I always wanted. I dreamed it more like when you're like, I had the weirdest dream, you guys, like that kind of thing. So I don't know what the steps are. I just know that just like when I was doing geometry, I just did it because I fucking loved it. I'm learning about NFT and I'm learning all that stuff because I'm realizing that there is a world of creation available to me. Like, and I want to continue to create on paper, but I want to take those pieces and render that, because I can't know about myself. If I was going to make my art on a computer, it would be dumb. Because it'd be like you just make click, click, click. You make these circles, and then you da da da. It's nothing. It's not that it's no judgment to anyone else who does it, but my purpose is half the time when I'm using my compass and it slips and falls, that creates the pathway for me to create the next part of my work. Like that's how I inform myself. I'm not here to be perfect. I'm here to like discover myself for all my weirdnesses.
I can't remember who it was. One famous artist said, your mistakes are your style.
Yes. Yes. I love it.
I love it.
I love it when I make mistakes. I'll be doing a thing and my compass falls or something. I'm like, oh, fuck. Ooh, cool. So, anyway, I don't know if I even answered your question very well, but I see areas I don't even know about.
You have, because you're exploring NFT, and I think that's that's sort of the next step. And I was thinking again a little bit. I just wanted to say, one of the dragons said to you, "You make all things anew." Is that right?
Yes.
Because this is what I'm selfishly just going to talk about me for a little bit. Even
yes, please.
This is one of the things that I decided about my own art, is that because I'm really interested in the idea of the matriarchy and changing how things are done, and I decided a while ago that this was the only way I could do it, is to change it as I went along, so that each thing I come to, I can't just follow the path that's already there. I kind of have to like revolutionize it, even if it's just for me, as I go along, and see, is there a way of doing it that fits with my vision of how I want the world to be, which is not like, working very hard in service forever, basically, even if it's to art, So it really made me think of that message, of changing it as I go along. And I found that whenever I get stuck, it's because I haven't done that. I've tried to just do it how I've been told to, or how the book, or how people say, this is how you follow. This is how you do this, or this is how you have an art career, or this is how you get big on Instagram, or this is how, whatever it is. And whenever I've tried to do that, I've always gotten stuck.
Totally.
And
I believe,
when I try, Go on, sorry.
I just believe that you and I are here in a little bit more of a complicated role as artists, because we're not just here to make art that people will buy. We're here because we have a world that we desire to see impacted and changed, and we know that the mama wisdom is what is needed in this society, and we're going to find a way to bring it forward in a way that does what it's meant to do. That's a bigger ask than just make art that people will buy.
Yeah.
You know, the NFT
Yeah.
world is full of art that people will just buy as a token of whatever. I want to get into that world and create sacred spaces where the mama wisdom is represented and shown, and like where it like.
And I wonder how many artists, given the freedom to talk really, really about what they really are doing when they make art. I'm really curious to find out when I interview more people what they really feel they are doing, because I wonder if this is what artists do. I don't know. Maybe not maybe some people just make art to sell it. I don't know. It'll be very, very interesting to find
Yeah,
out.
I hope I didn't sound judgy by saying that.
No, not at all.
I don't.
Not at all.
I don't want to be that way at all about it.
No, not at all. And for me, like, my practice involves a lot more than the actual making of the art. There's a lot of like stuff outside that. Sounds like the same for you. Like, it's a lot of meditation and, you know, writing and working with concepts and ideas and how I want the world to be and all those things. But quite a long time ago, I realized that, like, I'm an artist, and any change I make in the world will be through being an artist. Like that. Not any change, but that's my way. That's my method. That's my medium. You know, I'm not a politician. I'm not a writer. I'm not a journalist. I'm not even really an agitator, even though I've done that in the past. My path is art, and everything I do, I have to do through that path. So that's my magical path that I'm on, and I have to do it that way. But it doesn't mean I don't want to change the world.
Yeah.
It sounds like you too.
Well, I mean, your poetry. I mean, when you said you're not a writer, I think that's funny, but.
Well, I mean, I am a writer,
Yeah.
actually. That's, even on my cards, it says writer. But I
Writing is
mentioned
so brilliant.
I'm not a journalist. I'm not a,
Yeah.
Oh, Kimberly, it's been amazing. It's been amazing. Before we go, do you have any other pieces of art you want to show us? Or have you gone through everything that you've got ready at the moment?
Everything. I think I went through everything that's on here. But I'd like to just bring that same piece up that we were on before.
Do, and bring it up, and then tell me, is there anything else you want to share or talk about or ask or put out into the world while we're still here?
I just want to say that my biggest desire is that the piece of puzzle that I am of a way bigger story that I definitely don't know anything about. I just know that being the right piece of puzzle that I'm meant to be will make it easier for someone else to click in and find their piece of puzzle. And the same with you, and the same with everybody watching, is like, the whole deal is the thing that you love, the thing that brings you pleasure, the thing that you genuinely actually want to actually do is the thing that makes you the right size piece as yourself. And so my work is to hold up a mirror for another person to be like, wow, I don't know what they're going to get out of it, but I just hope that they get to find out who they really are, because it's going to be easier for me to be myself when you're being yourself and she's being herself and everyone's just being their authentic self. But we have all these layers of imposed behaviors, imposed ways of thinking and being that make that prevent that. So I feel very grateful to have gotten to step way outside of the realms that we normally hang out in, so that I can be like, oh, from here it's very easy to see how love really is the thing that's actually going to hold these things together. But it's not going to be love in words. Those don't work, obviously. It's not going to be love in useless sort of things that don't really matter. We're going to have to do it in real ways, and we're going to have to do it by loving and allowing others to be as they are. That's the way I see it. And so
Mm.
may you be the highest version of yourself, and I'll be the highest version of myself. And if it would be okay, I'd love to give you the blessing, the dragon blessing.
Give the drag, yeah, let's bless
Goes
everyone who
with
gets
that.
to see the
Yes.
video. Mm.
So if you look at this art piece, this is the blessing that that piece carries anyway. And so for anyone that's watching, this is my blessing for you, that you might be yourself. May you create anew according to your pleasure. May you shine your glorious light. May you take mature, responsible care of your creations. May you know that you are safe. And may you honor the truth and the fullness of your being in your experience of pleasure, beauty, renewal, and devotion. So I say, and so it is. Mwah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you,
It is
Kimberly.
my
It's been a
deep pleasure.
total, yeah, it's been a total pleasure and honor having you as my inaugural guest. Thank you so much for coming and talking about your art. I can't
Wonderful.
wait to see where it goes next.
Thank you, beloved. Mwah. I
Okay, I'm going to
appreciate it.
stop the recording, but don't go anywhere just yet. Let me stop the recording. Thank you, Kimberly.